Imagine a trader sitting in front of the screen, waiting for the perfect setup, hoping the market will finally validate their skill. And yet, again and again, the results disappoint. Why? Because success in trading is not about predicting the market, it is about mastering yourself. Every lost trade, every emotional reaction, every hesitation is not caused by the market. It is a reflection of habits unexamined, beliefs unchallenged, and reactions unchecked. Trading is a mirror. It reflects the clarity, discipline, and mindset of the trader. You can spend a lifetime studying charts, memorizing patterns, or seeking the perfect system, but none of it matters if your mind is untrained. The moment you develop habits that align your mind with the realities of the market, accepting uncertainty, thinking in probabilities, and responding rather than reacting, you stop losing. These are not tips you read in a book or tricks whispered by another trader. These are habits. Habits that shape your daily actions, the way you perceive risk, and the way you respond to pressure. Once these habits take root, the market no longer controls you. You control your experience of it. The fear of loss loses its grip, impulsive decisions vanish, and clarity emerges. Master these 3 habits, and you stop trading the market and start trading yourself. You stop hoping for outcomes and start aligning with reality. And in that alignment, losses no longer define your path, they refine it. Because trading is not a test of prediction. Trading is a test of the mind. The habits you cultivate are your edge. And when you master them, consistent success becomes inevitable. Most traders believe that the market is their opponent. They think that the charts, the indicators, and the price movements themselves determine whether they win or lose. They spend endless hours trying to find the perfect strategy, the one system that will give them certainty, the method that will make the market bend to their will, and yet, no matter how sophisticated their system or how meticulous their analysis, losses continue to happen. The truth is simple, yet few traders understand it deeply enough to act on it. The market does not control your results. Your habits do. Your habits shape your results more than any price chart ever could. Every action you take as a trader is a reflection of your underlying habits. How you approach a trade, how you respond to losses, how you handle uncertainty, how you set your stops, and how you follow your rules. All of these are expressions of habits formed long before you ever sit down in front of the market. A habit is not a single decision, it is a repeated pattern of behavior that becomes automatic over time. When your habits align with the principles of consistent trading, accepting uncertainty, thinking in probabilities, and acting without fear, you create a system that works, regardless of the market's behavior. When your habits are reactive, impulsive, or inconsistent, you guarantee frustration and loss. Most traders underestimate the power of habit because they confuse skill with technique. They believe that learning a new indicator, memorizing a pattern, or discovering a system is the key to success. But the market does not reward knowledge or cleverness. The market rewards consistent behavior. Every time a trader reacts emotionally to a loss, every time they override their plan because of fear or greed, every time they hesitate out of doubt, they are letting habit, or the lack of it, dictate the outcome. Habits are the bridge between knowledge and execution, between what you know you should do and what you actually do under pressure. Without strong, disciplined habits, knowledge is meaningless. Consider the role of preparation in trading. Traders often focus on setups, entry points, or indicators, but they rarely focus on the habit of preparation itself. Preparation is not about memorizing rules, it is about cultivating the internal discipline to follow those rules consistently, regardless of the market environment. It is the habit of reviewing your trades, assessing your decisions without judgment, and creating a mental framework that allows you to respond instead of react. This habit shapes results far more than any technical method, because the prepared mind does not panic when the market moves against it. Instead, it observes, adapts, and acts according to probability. Another habit that shapes results is emotional regulation. Many traders talk about controlling emotions as if it is a single act, a skill you turn on and off at will. But emotional control is not a skill you activate momentarily. It is a habit that is cultivated over time. Traders who master emotional regulation have trained themselves to respond to losses, gains, and uncertainty with clarity rather than fear. They have created mental patterns that prevent impulsive decisions, hesitation, or overtrading. When a trader develops this habit, the market no longer has the power to provoke panic, elation, or frustration. Instead, trades are approached as opportunities, not as tests of self-worth or intelligence. Consistency is another habit that separates successful traders from those who struggle. The market does not guarantee daily profits, it only offers probabilities. Consistency is created not by controlling the market, but by creating reliable internal patterns that can handle any outcome. A trader who habitually follows their plan, records their trades, and reflects on their behavior is consistent, regardless of whether they win or lose today. In contrast, a trader who acts sporadically, chases setups, or abandons rules when the market becomes uncomfortable will experience inconsistent results, no matter how brilliant their strategy appears on paper. Habits, not luck, drive long-term results. Many traders resist the idea that habits are more important than technique because it forces them to look inward. It is easier to blame the market, economic news, or some external factor than to confront the patterns of behavior that govern every decision. Yet the truth is clear: the market is neutral. It simply reflects probabilities. It does not care about your opinions, your intelligence, or your hopes. It responds to your habits because habits dictate actions. If you habitually overtrade, overleverage, or ignore risk management, the market will punish those actions. If you habitually follow a disciplined plan, accept losses, and maintain emotional equilibrium, the market will allow you to thrive. Habits are the invisible hand shaping your results. The most powerful traders do not chase perfection. They cultivate strong habits. They understand that mastery is not about finding the perfect strategy. It is about repeating the right behaviors consistently. They know that one great trade does not define skill, and one loss does not define failure. What defines them is the repeated application of habits that align with the realities of the market. The habit of planning, the habit of observing without attachment, the habit of responding with discipline. These are the foundations of results that are predictable, even in an unpredictable market. It is also important to recognize that habits take time to form. They are not developed overnight. Traders often fail because they attempt to change behavior in a moment of frustration, expecting immediate results. Susta. Enable habits grow through repetition, reflection, and reinforcement. Each trade becomes an opportunity to practice the behaviors that will ultimately determine success. Each loss becomes a lesson in how to refine your internal patterns. The focus is never on controlling the market. It is always on controlling the mind, because the mind's habits shape every action, reaction, and outcome. Habits also shape perception. How you perceive risk, opportunity, and uncertainty is a direct result of the mental patterns you cultivate. A trader with disciplined habits sees losses as temporary and manageable. A trader without those habits sees losses as catastrophic. A trader with strong habits follows the plan without hesitation. A trader without habits second-guesses every move. The market is the same for both, but their experience, and therefore their results, are dramatically different. Habits determine how the market is interpreted and acted upon. Ultimately, the idea that habits shape results more than the market is empowering. It removes blame and places responsibility where it belongs, with the trader. You cannot control price movements, but you can control how you react to them. You cannot control uncertainty, but you can develop patterns that allow you to act effectively within it. You cannot predict outcomes, but you can create behaviors that consistently align with probabilities. When you focus on cultivating the right habits, the market becomes a tool for growth, not a sork. E of anxiety. The market is a reflection, not a master. If you want to change your results, the starting point is not a new system, a new indicator, or a new shortcut. It is the deliberate cultivation of habits that support clarity, discipline, and consistency. It is the repetition of behaviors that align with reality, not hope. It is the conscious shaping of your mental patterns to act in harmony with the probabilistic nature of the market. Habits, when properly formed, create a foundation so strong that outcomes become less important than the process itself. Every successful trader you study, every consistent performer you admire, has one thing in common. Their results are the product of habitual behavior, not chance. They did not win because the market was favorable. They won because their habits prepared them to respond optimally to whatever the market delivered. The same opportunity exists for anyone willing to examine their own patterns, identify behaviors that limit performance, and replace them with habits that align with consistent, disciplined action. If you are serious about trading, the question you must ask yourself is not what system you should use or which indicator will give you an edge. The question is, what habits am I cultivating right now, and do they support the results I desire? If they do not, then you have the power to change them. It requires attention, repetition, and self-honesty, but the reward is transformative. When your habits are strong, your mind is trained, and your behavior is aligned with market realities, you no longer fear loss, chase trades, or struggle with inconsistency. You act, observe, adapt, and continue, confident that your results will reflect the patterns you have mastered. In the final analysis, the market is simply a stage, and your habits are the performance. Traders who fail focus on the chaos around them. Traders who succeed focus on the discipline within. Habits are the silent architects of success. They determine how you respond to adversity, how you interpret opportunity, and how you maintain equilibrium under pressure. If you wish to change your results, cultivate habits that align with reality, repeat them until they become automatic, and understand that every action you take is a reflection of the patterns within you. The market will always be uncertain, but when your habits are strong, your results will no longer be at its mercy. Every trader has experienced it. The tightness in the chest when a trade goes against you. The rush of excitement when the market moves in your favor. The voice in your head screaming to act, to get out, to chase, to revenge a loss. These moments are not failures of strategy or market unpredictability. They are failures of emotional discipline. Emotional discipline is the silent driver behind every successful trader, the invisible force that separates consistent winners from those who are trapped in cycles of hope, fear, and frustration. Until a trader learns to master their emotions, no system, no indicator, and no method can deliver consistent results. Emotions in trading are not inherently bad. They are natural responses to uncertainty, risk, and potential reward. The problem arises when a trader allows emotions to dictate actions. A loss triggers anger or panic, and suddenly a well-planned trade becomes a gamble. A winning trade sparks greed or overconfidence, and what should be disciplined risk management morphs into reckless exposure. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing these feelings, it is about observing them, understanding them, and acting without letting them hijack your decisions. Consider this: the market does not care about your emotions. Price moves neutrally, without judgment, without bias, and without intention. Yet your mind attaches meaning to every tick, every candle, every news headline. When a trader fails to master emotional discipline, their mind transforms neutral events into threats, opportunities, or personal tests. A loss is seen as failure, a missed trade as inadequacy, a market swing as punishment. These emotional reactions do not reflect reality. They reflect habit patterns that have been left unexamined. Mastering emotions means recognizing this distinction and creating the mental structures that allow clear, rational action even in the presence of powerful feelings. Most traders attempt emotional control through willpower. They tell themselves to stay calm, don't overreact, or be disciplined. But willpower is fleeting, and under the pressure of real-time market decisions, it often fails. Emotional discipline, in the Mark Douglas sense, is not a temporary act. It is a cultivated habit. It is the repeated practice of observing thoughts, acknowledging feelings, and acting according to probability rather than impulse. It is the internal training that allows a trader to respond consistently, whether the market moves up, down, or sideways. It is the mental architecture that turns reaction into response. To master emotional discipline, a trader must first understand the source of their reactions. Most emotional responses in trading are tied to one of three factors: fear, desire, or attachment to outcome. Fear arises from the anticipation of loss, desire from the anticipation of gain, and attachment from tying one's identity or self-worth to trade results. Every impulsive action in trading can be traced to one of these sources. Recognizing the origin of your emotional reaction allows you to step outside the automatic response and choose action consciously. The moment you realize that fear is driving a premature exit or that greed is driving overextension, you regain control. You move from being a reactive participant to a deliberate actor in the market. Another key principle in mastering emotional discipline is the acceptance of uncertainty. Most emotional turmoil comes from resisting what is unknown or uncontrollable. The market is uncertain by nat. And no trader can predict outcomes with certainty. Traders who fight this reality constantly find themselves in emotional chaos, but those who accept uncertainty create a mental framework where outcomes are possibilities, not threats. When a trade moves against them, they do not panic. They observe the probabilistic nature of the market and act according to their plan. Emotional discipline is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of perspective. It is the understanding that the market's behavior is neutral and that your response determines your experience. Emotional discipline is also cultivated through preparation and habit. Traders who enter the market without a plan are more vulnerable to emotional hijack, but a trader who habitually defines risk, sets rules, and practices scenarios in advance has created a mental scaffolding that supports calm, rational decision-making. Each trade becomes a test of execution, not emotion. Habits such as recording trades, reviewing mistakes without judgment, and reflecting on decisions help reinforce emotional stability. The repetition of these behaviors builds a resilient mindset, one that remains grounded in reality rather than swayed by transient feelings. One of the most challenging aspects of emotional mastery is dealing with losses. No trader can avoid losses entirely, they are inevitable. The difference lies in how losses are experienced. A trader lacking emotional discipline interprets loss as personal failure, a reflection of inadequacy. This triggers defensive behavior, revenge trading, or withdrawal from the market. A disciplined trader, however, interprets loss as information, a natural outcome of probabilistic thinking. Losses are signals, not judgments. They are moments to observe, learn, and reinforce mental structures. Emotional discipline allows you to maintain equanimity, seeing loss not as catastrophe but as an expected part of the process, a necessary step toward long-term consistency. Similarly, emotional discipline governs responses to gains. Greed and overconfidence are as dangerous as fear and panic. Winning trades can inflate the ego, distort perception, and encourage reckless behavior. Traders who master their emotions maintain perspective. They understand that no single trade validates skill, and no single success guarantees future results. They treat gains as data, not affirmation. Emotional discipline ensures that success does not breed recklessness, and that the mind remains calibrated for consistent action. A critical part of emotional mastery is self-awareness. Traders must observe their own thoughts, beliefs, and habitual reactions. It requires honest reflection and an understanding of the mental patterns that drive behavior. Are you chasing trades when fear is present? Are you exiting prematurely due to loss aversion? Are you over-leveraging when greed takes over? Awareness is the first step toward change. By observing without judgment, you begin to create the space necessary to act with intention rather than reaction. Many traders underestimate the role of patience in emotional discipline. Patience is not passive waiting, it is the active habit of staying aligned with your plan, regardless of external stimuli. Emotional discipline allows you to wait for the right setup, to follow risk management rules, and to refrain from impulsive action. Patience is the companion of clarity, and both are nurtured through repeated practice. Each moment you resist acting on impulse strengthens your discipline, reinforces your mental structures, and gradually reshapes your emotional responses into consistent, deliberate action. The path to mastering emotional discipline is not easy. It requires courage, self-reflection, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. Traders must confront their fears, their attachments, and their desire for immediate gratification. They must replace reactive patterns with deliberate habits. They must understand that emotions are not enemies, but signals to be observed, interpreted, and integrated into conscious decision-making. Mastery is built one moment at a time, one trade at a time, one repeated action at a time. The reward for mastering emotional discipline is profound. When the mind is calm, clear, and consistent, the market no longer dictates your results. You respond to reality rather than reacting to illusion. You act in alignment with probability, not hope or fear. Your decisions are deliberate, your execution precise, and your mindset resilient. The market becomes a canvas on which your disciplined mind can perform, rather than a battlefield where emotions wage war. Emotional mastery transforms trading from a struggle against uncertainty into a controlled practice of skill, awareness, and reflection. Ultimately, the journey to emotional discipline is the journey to freedom in trading. Traders who master their emotions are not slaves to the market. They are observers, responders, and practitioners of deliberate action. Losses no longer provoke panic, gains no longer breed recklessness, and uncertainty no longer creates anxiety. The market remains neutral, and the trader, guided by discipline, responds consistently. Emotional mastery is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice, a habit cultivated through attention, reflection, and repetition. It is the foundation on which consistent trading success is built. When you commit to mastering emotional discipline, you take control of the one factor that truly shapes your results, your mind. Systems can fail, markets can surprise, and losses will occur, but a disciplined mind remains intact. It learns, adapts, and continues, unshaken by temporary outcomes. Your habits, your preparation, and your emotional resilience become the source of consistent results, far more powerful than any external factor. Master emotional discipline, and you no longer lose to the market. You act with clarity, confidence, and control in every situation. In conclusion, emotional discipline is the cornerstone of consistent trading. It is not about eliminating feelings, it is about creating habits that allow feelings to exist without controlling behavior. It is the repeated practice of self-awareness, acceptance, and intentional action. It is patience in the face of uncertainty, perspective in the face of loss, and balance in the face of gain. When emotional discipline is mastered, the market ceases to be a source of fear, anxiety, or hope. It becomes a neutral partner in a process that is defined by your habits, your decisions, and your mindset. The power to succeed lies not in prediction, not in timing, but in the disciplined mastery of yourself. Trading is uncertain. Every tick, every price movement, every market reaction is inherently unpredictable. Yet most traders operate as if the market owes them clarity, consistency, or certainty. They attempt to control the uncontrollable, predict the unpredictable, and impose order on chaos. This approach almost guarantees frustration, inconsistency, and repeated losses. The key difference between consistently successful traders and those who struggle is their understanding and application of one principle: probabilistic thinking. Committing to probabilistic thinking transforms the trading mindset, allowing the trader to operate with clarity, discipline, and emotional stability, even when the market behaves in ways that seem chaotic or irrational. Probabilistic thinking is not a technique or a system, it is a mindset. It is the habit of perceiving every trade as a possibility rather than a certainty, every outcome as a probability rather than a guarantee. Most traders think in absolutes. This trade will succeed, this setup will work, this loss is unacceptable. Absolute thinking creates attachment to outcomes and magnifies emotional reactions. Probabilistic thinking, on the other hand, creates freedom. It allows the trader to act without needing validation, to follow rules without being swayed by temporary results, and to approach every opportunity as part of a larger ongoing process, rather than a single moment of triumph or failure. At its core, probabilistic thinking requires accepting uncertainty. The future is unknown, and the market cannot be predicted with certainty. Every trade is a roll of the dice, a statistical event within a larger context of repeated trials. A probabilistic trader understands that even the most favorable setup can fail, and even the least favorable can succeed. Success is not defined by the outcome of a single trade, but by the consistent application of a process that has a positive expectancy over time. This mindset shifts focus from obsessing over individual wins or losses to observing patterns, managing risk, and maintaining alignment with reality. Most traders struggle because they fail to see that risk and reward are probabilistic by nature. They attempt to impose certainty where none exists, treating trades as either wins or losses rather than events with varying probabilities. This attachment to outcomes triggers emotional reactions: fear, greed, hope, and regret. Probabilistic thinking dissolves these emotional responses by framing each trade as part of a series. A single loss is not catastrophic. It is simply one outcome among many. A single win is not validation. It is one event in an ongoing process. By committing to this mindset, traders free themselves from the tyranny of individual results and embrace the natural variability of the market. Probabilistic thinking also requires clarity and risk management. Risk cannot be eliminated. It can only be measured, controlled, and accepted. Traders who commit to probability understand that every trade carries a defined risk, and that managing that risk is more important than attempting to predict the market's behavior. They set stops and limits not as guesses but as parameters within which the market can express itself freely. By doing so, they create a structure in which probabilities can manifest without being overwhelmed by emotional reactions or impulsive decisions. Risk becomes a tool for clarity, not a source of fear. Another essential aspect of probabilistic thinking is the understanding that no single trade defines skill or intelligence. Many traders tie their self-worth to outcomes, and this attachment distorts perception. A single loss feels like failure. A single gain feels like genius. Probabilistic thinking reframes this experience. Skill is measured over time, across a series of trades by the consistent application of rules in alignment with probability. Each trade provides information, but it does not define competence. This reframing reduces emotional volatility and encourages disciplined execution, even in the face of temporary setbacks. Committing to probabilistic thinking requires training the mind to observe outcomes without judgment. Traders must practice detachment, understanding that price movements are neutral and that meaning is assigned by the mind. Emotional reactions are amplified when a trader interprets a single outcome as proof of skill, intelligence, or inadequacy. Probabilistic thinking teaches the mind to step back, to see each trade as one event in a larger data set, and to respond based on patterns, rules, and statistical reality rather than temporary emotional impulses. Many traders resist probabilistic thinking because it demands humility. It requires acknowledging that the market cannot be predicted, that certainty is impossible, and that losses are inevitable. Yet embracing this reality is liberating. When the trader accepts that uncertainty is natural, the mind stops struggling against it. Fear, regret, and desperation diminish. The trader becomes capable of acting in alignment with probabilities, rather than being driven by hope, panic, or attachment to specific outcomes. Probabilistic thinking transforms uncertainty from an enemy into a framework within which deliberate, disciplined action can occur. Probabilistic thinking also reshapes the perception of gains. Winning trades are no longer cause for overconfidence, nor are losing trades cause for despair. Each trade is a data point, providing information about the market, about your execution, and about your decision-making patterns. By focusing on the long-term patterns rather than short-term results, traders maintain emotional equilibrium and avoid the extremes of euphoria or panic that can destroy consistency. Probabilistic thinking instills patience, perspective, and resilience, qualities that cannot be developed through technical analysis alone. To commit fully to probabilistic thinking, a trader must cultivate the habit of reflection. After each trading session, trades are reviewed, outcomes are observed, and lessons are extracted, not as moral judgments, but as statistical data. This habit reinforces the understanding that success is a function of process, not outcome, and that consistency emerges from alignment with probability rather than attachment to certainty. Reflection transforms experience into insight, insight into habit, and habit into consistent, disciplined action. Probabilistic thinking also interacts with emotional discipline. Without the mindset of probability, emotions are magnified and the mind reacts to perceived threats or opportunities with urgency, panic, or greed. With probabilistic thinking, emotions are tempered because each event is seen as one of many, one that can be analyzed, observed, and learned from without judgment. Emotional discipline and probabilistic thinking are intertwined. One provides the structure, the other provides the perspective. Together, they create a mental framework capable of consistent performance under uncertainty. A key aspect of probabilistic thinking is understanding expectancy. Every trading system has an expectancy, a measure of the average outcome over a series of trades. Probabilistic thinking shifts focus from individual trades to expectancy. Traders stop evaluating success based on single outcomes and instead measure it by adherence to a process that produces positive expectancy over time. This mindset allows the trader to act with confidence, knowing that even a series of losses is simply part of the natural variation in probability, and that consistent application of the process will produce favorable results over time. Commitment to probabilistic thinking also involves managing psychological biases. Traders are wired to see patterns where none exist, to chase certainty, and to react emotionally to random events. Probabilistic thinking counters these biases by framing the market into RMs of likelihood, not certainty. Every trade is evaluated not by how desirable it seems, but by the probability of favorable outcomes within a defined risk framework. This approach reduces impulsive decisions, reinforces rationality, and aligns behavior with statistical reality rather than hope or fear. Ultimately, committing to probabilistic thinking is a commitment to freedom. It liberates the trader from attachment to outcomes, from the tyranny of hope and fear, and from the illusion of control over an inherently uncertain environment. It places the power where it belongs, within the mind, within the habits, within the consistent application of rules that align with reality. Probabilistic thinking transforms trading from a test of luck into a disciplined practice of skill, observation, and rational response. Traders who master probabilistic thinking operate with clarity, focus, and composure. They do not chase outcomes, overreact to losses, or let greed distort their decisions. They understand that the market is a neutral partner, that every event carries multiple possible outcomes, and that their task is to act in alignment with probability rather than against it. This mindset produces consistency, resilience, and long-term success because it aligns the trader's expectations with the realities of the market. Probabilistic thinking is not an intellectual exercise. It is a habit, a way of perceiving, interpreting, and acting in every trade. It requires practice, reflectio, and repetition. Each trade is an opportunity to reinforce the habit, to act according to probability, to manage risk, and to observe outcomes without attachment. Over time, this habit becomes automatic, shaping decisions, emotional responses, and results in profound and consistent ways. When you commit fully to probabilistic thinking, the market ceases to be a source of fear or hope and becomes a mirror reflecting your habits, your discipline, and your alignment with reality. Losses are no longer personal, gains are no longer intoxicating, and uncertainty is no longer paralyzing. You respond with clarity, consistency, and rationality, knowing that over time, your habits and mindset, not luck, not prediction, not hope, will determine your results. Probabilistic thinking is the foundation of consistent trading success, the mental framework upon which disciplined action, emotional control, and long-term results are built. In conclusion, committing to probabilistic thinking is the ultimate mental edge in trading. It transforms uncertainty from a threat into a framework for action, detaches outcomes from emotional reactions, and allows the trader to focus on process rather than result. By thinking in probabilities, managing risk, observing outcomes without judgment, and acting in alignment with rules that have positive expectancy, a trader creates the conditions for consistent, reliable results. Probabilistic thinking is not a shortcut, a system, or a trick. It is a mindset, a habit, and a discipline. Those who embrace it gain clarity, freedom, and consistency. Those who resist it remain trapped in cycles of hope, fear, and emotional reaction. The choice is yours. Commit to probabilistic thinking and you take control of your mind, your habits, and ultimately your results. Success in trading is not found in predicting the market, discovering the perfect system, or chasing certainty. It is built from within, through the habits you cultivate, the discipline you practice, and the mindset you commit to. Habits shape your actions, emotional mastery guides your responses, and probabilistic thinking aligns you with reality. Together, they create consistency, resilience, and clarity. The market remains neutral, but your results reflect the strength of your mind. Focus on mastering these internal foundations, and losses lose their power, emotions lose their grip, and long-term success becomes inevitable.